All right, Mindy, thank you so much, and to the Expert Agile Club. Boy, that sounded impressive, that introduction. So thank you so much. I'm going to start to share my screen. Can everybody tell me if they can see it? Okay, Mindy, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so basically, who am I? Sort of in real life, not in my bio. So I'm a person that's had a agile personal life, but a waterfall professional life. So Mindy talked about my professional life. I had a very traditional professional life from the point of view of I went to Wall Street, then I got tired of it, or it got tired of me in 2007, basically pivoted to the solar industry, and loved that. And then at the age of 50, decided I didn't want to take orders from a 35-year-old, for better or for worse. And I decided to go into career coaching 5+ years ago. So I love what I do. And I have been working with Agiles almost from day one. So we're going to talk here about how to apply Agile principles to getting the comp you want, to the extent you can, at least going about it the best way, and getting the right job. So let's dig in. So before we do that, actually, so Mindy, do we have the results of the poll? I'm just going to take a look at the poll to see who we have. Okay. All right. So can everybody see me? Okay, looks like everyone's seeing me. Great. Okay. So I want to learn a little bit about the crowd, but before we do, just a couple of opening comments. So basically, we're in the hottest job market we've ever been in at least my 56 years on this planet. So basically, I say here that anybody can get a job, but if you really want the right job, you got to think about it. You got to follow a plan. It's amazing to me that people will spend hours upon hours upon hours agonizing over buying a piece of real estate, especially if it's a primary home. But when it comes to job search, they peruse the job boards, they talk to some friends, they tune up their resume and their LinkedIn profile, and they basically apply on the job boards and see what the job board gives them. And maybe they do some networking too. So I think that's an approach to get a job, but I don't think it's the one to get the job. So I'm going to argue, and we'll talk about it. I'm going to argue for much more of an active versus a passive job search technique. So let's keep digging in. Okay, so a little bit more about myself. So I'm independent of framework. I don't care about Scrum. I don't care about Kanban. I don't care about the other frameworks that exist. So I'm completely independent of framework, and probably don't have an exact appreciation of the difference amongst all of them, but some. Okay. I mentioned I've been helping Agiles for 5+ years, dangerously knowledgeable. I know that Agile applies to delivery, or does apply to delivery, and certainly can and does apply to the C-suite, HR, finance, or any other department. So I know we probably have people on this call that my guess is mostly delivery people, but we hopefully have some from the C-suite, HR, finance, or other functional groups. Okay. I won a science fair award in 4th grade. Now, why is that important? It's not. The reason why I put that on there is because it's not really important for this conversation that I won a science fair award in 4th grade. But I will guarantee you that some of the people on this call have information on their resume and their LinkedIn profile, which is not relevant for getting the next job. Now, I didn't say it's not relevant. I said it's not relevant for getting the next job. So the whole purpose of your paperwork, or your resume and your LinkedIn profile, cover letter, the whole purpose is to get a job, not necessarily to get a job, it's to get the right job. So depending upon the job you get, you may very well have information that's superfluous, like the fact that I won a science fair in 4th grade. So definitely first piece of advice is take a look at your resume, and to the extent there's something too old, not really that relevant, then take it off, because people really care about the last 5 to 10 years at most. Okay, I can't spell, so I use a spell checker. Obviously, that's a pun. Spell checking is so important. It's amazing to me, and I continuously have clients that call me up and say, "Mike, I just sent an email to the senior person reiterating my interest in the job, and they spelled something wrong." So the use of a spell checker was just so important out there. And of course, spell checkers don't catch everything. When I was a mid-level person in investment banking, I was basically on the train to go see a client. My junior people had prepared the book, and guess what? My junior person didn't check the fact that the word should have been public issuance of securities. Guess what? It didn't come out as public. It came out as pubic. Needless to say, we didn't get the assignment from the client, and that was extremely embarrassing for me. So believe it or not, the spell checker is the single most important tool you could possibly use. Now, also, the last bullet point, I mentioned I've had an agile, so to speak, personal life. I've had 2 ex-wives. I've had 3 kids. I live in Boulder half the time. I live in San Diego half the time. And now I'm in love with the woman who lives in Kansas City. Sorry, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City. Oh God, I hope she's not listening. No, honey, you're the same one. I don't have 2. So the point is that my life has been a zigzag when it comes to the personal side of things. And I think I've learned much more than had I had the life of my brother and my parents, which is a standard, be married for 30 or 50 plus, 50 and then 30 years respectively. So the idea that you could be holding jobs fewer than 3 years, the idea that you would go from one company to another, and that's not seen as a negative with Agilists, but it is seen as a negative with other kind of professionals. That's incredibly important. Would I have done it that way to begin with? No, probably not. But the zigzagging that I've done in my personal life, I think it may not be a bad sort of a framework for how Agilists are interacting with the marketplace. So let's talk about you. So this is the most likely set of conclusions, but I've dealt with a lot of Agilists and other professionals, and most likely through the job search process, whether it be your resume, whether it be your LinkedIn profile, whether it be your interview strategy, I will almost guarantee, in fact, I would put money on the line that at least 50% of you don't stress soft skills enough. They're so incredibly important. Now, how you do that, that's kind of beyond the scope of this conversation, but stressing soft skills is so incredibly important, and most people don't do it adequately. They don't stress business results, especially if you're technically inclined. What I'll see is resumes that are extremely technical with people that know the latest and greatest, but they don't say what the business result was. Because let's face it, everybody is in an organization to drive business results. I don't care if you are answering the phone at the front desk, to the extent that means something, marketing, technology, HR, everybody's there to drive business results. So talking about the fact that you integrated this platform with this platform and did all of this, yeah, that's what you did. That's important. But people really want to know, they want to know how you did it, but most importantly, they want to know the results. So I find that Agilists many times don't always have the results, or people in general don't always have the results, business results on their resume. And of course, you contributed to the business results. You certainly didn't create the business results, or if you did, then maybe you're in sales, but you certainly contributed to it, and it's important to show what your contribution has been. Too wordy in your marketing. This is incredibly important. Most people are way too wordy in their marketing. Their resumes are too long. Their LinkedIn profiles can go on and on. So my brother once told me, which has really stuck with me, which is when you're in an interview situation, anything you say can and will be used against you. So I'll mention something about that at the end of this page. I will guarantee you that many people here have a resume that's longer than 1 page. Now, that's okay, but should you have one as 1 page, 2 page, 3 page? That's all kind of dependent on the field you're in, the type of job you're looking for. But if your resume today is more than 3 pages, and unless you're going for a government job, it's got to be too many. I rarely do a 3-page, but I really do, certainly I won't do a 4-page for a client. Well, I did once, but I cautioned the client that this is really not market. But many of you may have, I've seen resumes that are like 10 pages long. I would also guess that many of you do not have a LinkedIn profile. LI is LinkedIn. I get tired of typing it. So your LinkedIn profile is not keyword search optimized. Okay, well, what does that even mean? So when you're taking a look at your LinkedIn profile, there are 4 sections. Matter of fact, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So I assume everyone can still see my screen. Mindy, if you can't see you, please chime in. So let's take a look at Mike Mittleman for a second. Okay. So this is my LinkedIn profile. And your LinkedIn profile, to the extent that you want to attract recruiters, third-party recruiters, recruiters that work at companies, you want to attract the recruiters. So basically, there's four sections of a LinkedIn profile where you need to have keywords. What the keywords are depends obviously on your job type, the industry you're in, and all of that. Beyond the scope, obviously, of what we're talking about here. But there's four sections of a LinkedIn profile that you want to have as many keywords as possible. So number one, right underneath your name, you get 220 characters. I've used, I think, close to 200, 218, 219. You should be able to take a look at my tagline. We call it tagline or headline. You should be able to take a look at this and know exactly what I can do for you. Okay. And this isn't, I deal with financial professionals a lot. They're not the only ones I deal with, but that's a lot of who I work with. But you sort of know about me here. Okay, I can help you with recognition and respect and relief. I help people earn what they deserve. I'm a career coach. I say I'm a banker. And of course, I'm proud of the fact that I went to Wharton, so I say Wharton, because that helps credibility. So right underneath your name, incredibly important to have keywords, and it's also one of the first things somebody sees. Somebody will first look at your picture, then your name, then your headline section. So if you don't have a good picture, can't change your name. Although if you have a hyphenated name, or if you took your partner's name, there's ways to deal with that also. But your picture, your name, and your tagline, incredibly important. Okay. The next section, LinkedIn has changed around how they present somebody, but I'm going to skip over the activity for a minute and go to the about section. So some of you may not even have an about section. It's incredibly important. It's probably the fourth most important part, because number one, it's a handshake introduction of you. So therefore you'll read somebody's about section, and hopefully that reinforces what's in your tagline above. And the about section is important because it's the second of the four keyword search areas. Okay, you get 2,600 characters. I pretty much have used them all. Okay, so 2,600 characters. You get 2,600, use them, absolutely crucial. So that's the second of the four keyword search areas. Your experience section is also the third section. You're allowed 2,000 characters per position. I've used them all. At least I should have used them all. I haven't looked at it in a while. Shame on me, I haven't looked at my LinkedIn profile in about 6 months. So the experience is absolutely crucial. You get 2,000 characters. That's absolutely plenty to describe what you want to describe. And then finally, what used to be called the skills and endorsement section, which is now called the skills section. There's two things. Interesting. I paused for a second because it seems like LinkedIn made a change again. So that's actually important with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is always making changes, and now it's owned by Microsoft. So they're constantly making changes. But there's some sort of universal truths or stuff that I see usually. So number one, you get 50 skills. Now there's a reason why I only have 45. It's the way I conduct business, and I have to have some extra room in there when I'm giving a client recommendations. But basically, you get 50 skills, keyword search area. So not only do you want 50 skills, but you want 50 multi-word skills. So don't have cross-functional manager when you can have global cross-functional team leader. Nerds like me get into contests with other people about how we can get 5 and 6 word keywords into 5 and 6 words into a keyword. I mean, clearly we don't have a personal life. Probably the reason why I've had 2 divorces, but we people on my end kind of like that stuff. So you got to have 50 skills if you want to be found, and they should be multi-word. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so you have your top 3 skills, or the 3 skills that you actually select to be on the top, are also here. Nobody clicks this button, but you want to have 50, and your top 3 should be here. So I will almost guarantee that at least half of you have outdated skills or skills that don't match your next job. So if you're senior and you have junior skills here, not going to look good. So if you have all technical skills and you're not stressing your management skills, that's a mistake for anybody. I don't care if you're a Python developer, you still want to say that you have some sort of management skills. If you're 28 or older, if you don't have anybody reporting to you, that's different. But I'd argue you still want to have some because you're still managing. You're managing up in the organization. You may be managing business stakeholders in other departments. So that's the fourth area, is the skills section. So does anybody have any questions? If you do, please type them into the chat. So I'm going to pause here. So I'd encourage everyone to be as as interactive as possible, because if I talk for a straight hour and a half and don't take a break, I'm going to get bored of myself. Okay, someone type something in. Okay, a bit of a shy audience. Okay, let's go on. Okay, so people, Mindy, is the chat open? Yeah, I can see somebody put a chat in. Okay, fantastic.
Yes, so the chat is open. And if you guys don't want to type in, you guys are welcome to unmute and ask questions as well.
Yep. And I didn't plant anybody in the audience to ask me a question, which is something I generally do. So please ask questions. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, some fun facts. Do you know there's 174 million people in the United States on LinkedIn? Do you know that 0.7%, or about 1 million people, have Agile in their profile? About half that number have Agile and technology. You can see the remaining statistics. There's a lot of people with Agile, whether it be finance, whether it be HR. Now, interestingly enough, actually, that is not a correct figure. Actually, it was about 7,000. So this is actually, oh, no. No, I apologize. So, I'm gonna have to check that figure. But number of people had Clown. I don't think it's 1.2 million. I'll double check that, but I'll show everyone how I got that. So the point is, there's 107 people out there that have Agile and Clown in their background. I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's 107 people actually have Agile and Clown in their background. Now, I'd like to meet those people. Actually, I'd like to do a webinar with them because they're probably pretty interesting. But what's my point here? My point is that if I can find the correct number of clowns that exist on LinkedIn, you can find anybody that has any skill whatsoever, as long as they put it on their LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is your best job search friend. It is your best friend for networking. It is your best friend for information. It is your best friend for everything. If you don't know LinkedIn and you're doing a job search, that is incredibly important to learn. LinkedIn's got their tutorials on there, so that is incredibly important. Now, let me show you how I did that. Nothing's gonna be mysterious here. So basically, I'm gonna go back into LinkedIn, and I'm gonna give you what I consider to be the #1 secret on LinkedIn. Okay, so basically, this picture is 5 years old. I look pretty good, but I think my hair is, I think I've gained a few pounds since then too. So I like that hairline. Unfortunately, it's not as robust as it used to be, but I digress. Okay, so how do I know that there's that many clowns? Okay, well, many of you may know how to do a people search, but I'm going to go through, and there's many different ways to get to the people search. But the way I get to the people search, which is not the big secret, if I want to do a people search, I'll click within the upper left-hand search bar. I'll hit the Enter key. And now I can search by any of this. I can search by people. The post doesn't even work. You can search by companies. So I'm going to search by people. Okay. So many of you may have been here before. There's an all filters. Okay. So how did I get the clowns in the United States? We can double check, because I thought I had maybe had a bad number. Maybe I did. Okay. So I wanted to find the clowns in the United States. So location, United States. Okay. Now, I don't care about their school. I don't care about their company. Okay. You see all this stuff down here? Don't use it. It doesn't work. At least it doesn't work well. When you use LinkedIn as much as I do, you figure out all their problems and everything else. I would never use any of this stuff, and I'm going to tell you exactly why in a minute. So this bottom section, don't even touch. It's just very, very buggy. If there's anybody from LinkedIn on the phone, give me a call, because I think you should be paying me to catch all of your bugs. I pay a lot for LinkedIn. I'm constantly letting them know what their bugs are. So I figure they should be paying me, especially since I really love LinkedIn and promote it for free.
Mike, I'm going to post a couple questions from our LinkedIn Live in the chat for you to answer.
Oh, great, great. Okay, good. Tired of hearing myself talk. Okay, so let's just show the results. So let's see how to get the clown, then we'll go in. Okay, so what do we know? There's 174 million people on LinkedIn. Okay, that's my original statistic. Now, how do you find the clowns? Okay, you see the search bar? This is the single greatest trick I've learned on LinkedIn. The search bar is a sub-filter, or it's a search within a search. So if I type the word clown in, I did have the wrong figure. So basically what I just told LinkedIn to do was to go find the word clown on those 174 million people in the United States. And anybody who has the clown on there, didn't have to be in the experience. It didn't have to be in any section. It's basically saying, hey, LinkedIn, find clown on somebody's LinkedIn profile. Okay, so there's 12,000, okay. The funny thing about LinkedIn is that you'll get different results depending on how you, depending on how many times you do the same search. But be that as it may. So there's 12,000 people that have clown in their profile. So I mean, you may not realize the power of that, but let's get a little more specific. Let's assume for a minute you wanted to work in fintech, okay? Financial technology. You want to work for Stripe or for Chime, or you want to work for everybody getting rich in fintech, pretty much except for me, although I help clients get into fintech, but I'm not getting rich on it. Okay, well, you know what? Fintech is not an industry. So if I go back to all filters, if you look here, under industry, I'm going to type in fintech. Guess what? There's no industry called fintech. We can sit here all day long and have an interesting discussion on what fintech means, but let's just suffice it to say, there is no industry for fintech. Well, how do you find sorry, let's get off the clowns now. So how do you find agilists that are in fintech? You're an agilist, you're thinking about becoming an agilist, which I think is absolutely fantastic. So how do you find the agile people that are in fintech? Well, there's a number of different ways to do it. So, okay, 7,200. Now, the first thing I want to point out is you need the capital and. If folks remember from middle school, high school grammar, Boolean variables, you can use and, or, and not. Okay, what I just described is the single most powerful thing you can do on LinkedIn. You want to find agile and fintech, and maybe you want to find people with the title director. 3,000 people, and you want to find the people. Okay, well, something else. We want to find the people that are in HR. I don't know. I didn't capitalize and. And the funny thing about LinkedIn is sometimes you have to capitalize and not, but you're better off just. Okay, so if anybody out there wants to work, if anybody out there has an Agile cert or is thinking about it and wants to get into fintech and wants to speak to somebody at the director level and wants to speak to an HR person, boom, you have 59 people to potentially source from. Now, what you say to them, how you connect with them, what wording do you use to connect with them, how do you ask for a phone call, that's sort of outside the scope of what we're talking about here. But suffice it to say, there's 60 people, and if I even get rid of the word director, which is probably the constraining factor here. Okay, you don't need to capitalize HR. Okay, 120 people, rounding. 120 people. If you want to work in fintech and you're an HR person, I'd be inviting every single one of these people to connect on LinkedIn and try to get a conversation with them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. But just look how powerful this is. Now, let's see if any of them are clowns, just for fun. And then we'll get to the questions because I'm having too much fun with the searching. Okay, so there's no clowns. So I would advise anybody who's a clown out there to go into this profession, so you'll be the only one that gets found. But I mean, you can just see how powerful this is in terms of finding people. Okay. All right, let's go to some questions. Okay, so all right, great. I'm just going to take them in order. I'm looking to my other screen because I got the 3 screens in front of me. That makes me feel important. I have 3 screens in front of me, kind of like a trader on Wall Street, which I wanted to be, but I wasn't qualified. What advice would I give to include work experience and duties on LinkedIn? Okay, so what should you include in terms of LinkedIn duties and experiences? So you want to have a robust experience section because that's a keyword search optimization section. I generally like a LinkedIn profile to be robust, meaning everything filled in. Now, if you're 56 and you don't want to list 100 jobs you've had in your life, okay. But I think generally most of your jobs and most of your companies should go on your LinkedIn profile, because that means you'll be searchable. So I think that in terms of the number of companies, I think you want to have the companies on there. And in terms of your duties, I would have your duties on there, because that section is a keyword search area. So if I just simply say career coach and I don't describe what I do as a career coach, that's not going to help somebody find me. So I think the idea is you want to be as descriptive as possible about your job responsibilities. Now, obviously, you don't say anything that's confidential. You don't say anything that's going to get you fired. But I think that people should fill in the LinkedIn profile as much as possible, especially the experience section. Okay, so if anybody's a follow-up question to that, just put it in the chat. Okay, another question. How far back in years should you mention on your resume? And some use 10 to 15. Okay, this is an incredibly good question with an incredibly partially complicated answer. On one hand, people only care about what you've done in the last 5 to 10 years. As I mentioned, no one cares about the fact that I won a science award in 4th grade, except my mother. And she's still alive, God bless her. I think she still brags about it to her friends. Nobody cares. So nobody is really going to care what you did as a general rule. And I'm going to use the word general because there's always exceptions. I have a client that was in the FBI 15 years ago, and now he works on crime-related activities. Well, that's really important that he puts that he was on the FBI, and it was 15 years ago, because nobody else in his line of work is really in the FBI. So there's always exceptions. I should just got off the phone with him. He does know your client, anti-money laundering kind of diligence. So people care about the past 10 to 15 years. Care about the last 5 to 10 years in terms of evaluating your candidacy. Okay. Now the question becomes, though, that wasn't the real question. But that's the real question. The next question is, should you go back 10 or 15 years? Well, here's the issue. We're in a world of transparency these days. Everything is transparent. We're watching the war in Ukraine, for God's sakes, as it's happened, as we may pause and say a blessing for everybody there. Okay. So everything is transparency these days. Social, economic, religious, LGBTQ. I mean, everything is about transparency these days. So there's no rule for a resume. Absolutely no rule for a resume. So you can put anything on there that you want. However, there's been a sea change in what's happened over the last couple of years in terms of how someone does a background check on you. So in other words, what happens typically? You submit your resume for a job, either through the computer or a friend passes your resume in. And what typically happened more than 2 years ago? Well, you get an interview. Let's assume they give you a job offer. Well, they basically give you a job offer, you accept it, and then you fill in basically a job application. Hopefully everyone can see my hands. You fill in the job application, and then you put down all the truth, because they'll find it. Background checkers can find almost anything. So in the old world, you get to fit the truth in on this on the employment application. Okay, and then they send that to background checker. The background checker does the work. But there's been a sea change, and now what larger companies are starting to do is because of technology or because of whatever, the companies have said, wait a minute, we have this person's resume. Why do we need to get an application from this person? Why don't we just give the resume to the background checker? Okay, anybody who's lied on the resume at this point should probably say, whoops. Now, how prevalent is it? I don't know, but I can tell you the big companies are starting to do this because it saves time, saves energy, and everything else. So if you do want to lie on your resume, I'm not that's your business. I'm not one to say lie or don't lie, but if you do, and that gets given directly to a background checker and they find an inconsistency, unless it's an inconsistency of a small thing like April of 2012, you left a job as opposed to May, you put it down. If there's a serious inconsistency, they could withdraw your application, withdraw your job offer. And I've seen it happen before. So obviously there's a fine line because you may not want to put everything on your resume or every little detail. But on the other hand, it is sometimes used as a background check. So I think the long and the short is 5 to 10 years is what people care about, but I would probably list all the jobs on my resume. Now, you don't have to make them front and center. You can basically list the last, matter of fact, my suggestion would be list the last 5 to 10 years of your jobs with content. And then anything older than that, just put the word at the bottom, put the word other, IBM, Xerox, Goldman Sachs, whatever it happens to be. So you don't have to give resume geography to these older jobs other than putting them in this kind of other category. Okay, again, any follow-ups, please let me know. Okay. someone wanted me to try a Boolean for clown or Agile. Okay, all right, I'm always up for that. Here's something that's also very important. I'm going to go back into LinkedIn. If you try to do too many things in LinkedIn, the filters get caught and they don't clear it out. So I may sound like I'm anti-LinkedIn. I'm absolutely not. I think it's fantastic, but you got to be careful that it has limitations. And whether that's my buffer or my what do they call it? My cookies or my blah blah blah. I don't know, but I know is I go back into LinkedIn about 100 times a day because I just want to clear everything out. So here's another trick. All the searching I just did, you don't have to do in the people filter. You can do it directly here. So someone wanted to see clown or Agile. Okay, I capitalized or. Now I didn't do the United States. Okay. Clown or Agile. Okay, United States. Now, perfect example of where LinkedIn is not acting the way it should. Oh, okay, maybe it is now. Okay, 74,000. So that would be clown or Agile. Now, that seems a bit low to me. And again, you always have to use sort of common sense when you're doing these searches. Okay, I didn't do the United States. If there's 3.9 million just Agile, how could Agile or clown be that low number? Okay, the point is LinkedIn search features are buggy. However, they're the best thing we have, and they are good if you just repeat it once or twice. So the most important thing is use common sense. If you get a strange result when you do LinkedIn, just repeat the search, and you'll probably get it after once or twice. So very, very important. Okay, so we can go back to LinkedIn, but as I said, it is absolutely your best friend. So, okay, so I am curious about a little bit more about the audience. So you don't have to admit this, any of these questions, but if folks could, let me see, I was going to see which of these questions. We don't have a poll. Well, I guess we do have I don't know how to use the polling feature. So, okay. So in terms of trying to get a handle on people, so the key questions I ask myself, so I won't be able to ask folks, but I'll tell you the reason why I'm asking is, I want to know who's unemployed versus employed. Because if you're unemployed, I'm curious whether you use an Agile or you got an Agile certificate to try to get a job. And I'm curious how good has that worked? How well has that worked? There's so many people that are transitioning through Agile because they don't want to work in lower paying jobs. So Agile is certainly a certificate that can help boost your income. You know, you can ask yourself, how many people actually have good LinkedIn profiles, given what I talked about, the four keyword search areas, okay? How many of you think you have a good resume? And we'll talk more about that, okay? How many of you think the resume is more important than the LinkedIn profile? Okay, this we could ask because I don't think it's not gonna tell me if you went to jail or not, which I don't care. So if you think that the resume is more important than the LinkedIn profile, please just type the word resume into the chat. So again, if you think the resume is more important, just put resume, put R, if you would. Okay, we have a shy crowd. Okay, if the shyer the crowd, the more I start talking about my personal life and my two ex-wives. Okay, we have a shy crowd. Okay, the LinkedIn profile is vastly more important because the LinkedIn profile is, somebody got it. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Ricky G. Okay, you're my new best friend. Oh, Andam. Okay, excellent, if I pronounced your name right. So LinkedIn profile is vastly more important. Why? Because it's the first it's the first basically spot someone's going to see you. Unless you know the person directly, the first impression they're going to get of you is the LinkedIn profile. You won't even get to the resume stage if your LinkedIn profile is not decent or even better than decent. So the LinkedIn profile is the first impression, and we all know that first impressions are, you can't repeat a first impression. So obviously you want to have both, but the LinkedIn profile, I cannot stress. I can't tell you how many of my, before they become clients, how many people have really good resumes, and my clients just sometimes they torture themselves over the resumes before they see me, and their LinkedIn profile is very, very bare. Now, a bare LinkedIn profile that's okay, but it's not keyword search optimized. It's not fully filled in. They may have one job. They may have had 5 jobs at one company, different jobs, but they only put 1 in there. The point is, it's the first impression someone's going to have of you. And if you have an interview, this is just an FYI. If you do have an interview, expect that the interviewer Googled you, looked up your Facebook account, your TikTok account, your Instagram account, all the other platforms that they're basically out there. So your LinkedIn profile is the idea is that the LinkedIn profile is probably the first place people go. You want to control the narrative about you. Because if they go to Facebook and they see dumb stuff about your dog, well, at least they saw your LinkedIn profile first and maybe conclude, okay, the person has some personality because they like dogs. But you have to control the image that you're building of yourself. And that starts with LinkedIn. Okay. Okay. Oh, we have some, okay, from LinkedIn Live, we have 2 people that answered resume. Okay. Nope, I do think LinkedIn is more important. Now, there's exceptions. There's like the exceptions to everything. If a buddy's going to get you into a company, if a buddy's going to get you into a company and you're going to get interviewed regardless of whether you're going to get interviewed because you know somebody there extremely well, or it's a small company, they really don't, if it's a small company that's run by a friend, okay, you can bypass the LinkedIn. So yeah, sometimes maybe making a first impression is not as important, but most of the time it is. So please work on your LinkedIn profile if you are in job search mode. Okay, how many of you are in big tech? Okay, I'll define big tech right now as FANG, Facebook, Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon Web Services, or any of the top 10, 15, 20 big tech. Is anybody in big tech that they're comfortable sharing? Anybody in big tech? Now, of course, it's probably on your LinkedIn profile. If it's not, it should be. So it's not secretive. Anybody in big tech? Okay, we'll just give people a... okay. Ricky G says not yet. Okay, give me a call, Ricky. We'll see if we can do something about that. Okay, we have shy people. Okay, maybe there's some votes will come in from the live. Someone says neither, or not there either. Okay, great. And I am curious, how many of you are in fintech? Holding aside what the word fintech means for a second, I'm curious how many people are in what they would consider to be fintech. Okay, we'll give people a couple of minutes. We have one person that said yes, used to be. Okay. Interesting. So let me relate this conversation I had with somebody. So for those interested in fintech, I had a conversation with a head of HR of a fintech. There were 200 people, and she was complaining to me that their product managers did not have Agile experience. Okay, so fintech, sexy, arguably, fintech. The product managers did not have enough Agile experience. So that tells me if you do have Agile experience and if you're interested in fintech, that these 200 person, maybe up to 500 people companies are lacking in your skill. So that is a primary area I'd be looking. I mean, fintech is exploding everywhere. And frankly, I don't care whether you go to fintech or big tech or work for a family. But if you do want to go into fintech, and you know, let's face it, fintech and big tech are growing quicker than anything else out there. Especially in fintech, there's a dearth of Agile people. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you're Agile, fintech needs you. Okay. Banking. Oh, we have some banking. Okay. Banking is separate. I call banking separate than big tech or fintech. So banking is important too. Okay. So we have a question. How do we get our foot in the door without any fintech experience? Okay. I won't talk too much about it because it's specific to fintech, but the most important thing about fintech is attitude. If you want to get into fintech, you have to show them that you're hungry. You want to be in fintech. Do you trade crypto? Do you read crypto? Do you read about the fintech industry? So if you want to get into crypto, the first thing you have to do is start to educate yourself. And you have to get excited about it. You have to tell people why you want to be in crypto or in fintech. It's a quasi fintech and crypto. It's very much a very close-knit group of people who are democratizing the world, and they believe very strongly in it. So you have to get on board with that and drink the Kool-Aid. So that's the way to get into fintech is just study up on what fintech is and what crypto is, and show that passion. Okay, and put that passion on your resume. at the very last line of your resume, you can say hobbies, activities, and you can put on there all the crypto publications you read. So you're creating a story on why you're interested in crypto. Put on there exactly what you've read. Take courses in crypto. Coursera. I'll put that in the. Again, I don't get paid by them, but I should. Coursera. I'm pretty sure it's .com. I don't know if it's .org. Okay, so Coursera has the best. Coursera, bar none, has the best, most cost-effective courses out there. Courses of all different topics. They have courses in fintech galore. They have courses in crypto. They have courses in everything out there. So you can take one, or they have an all-that-you-can-eat kind of menu for like, last time I checked, it was like $400+ per year. So if you want to get into crypto, take some of these courses, and they'll also give you some certificates. So you take it, you get a certificate, you put it on your resume. So whole discussion around fintech, but since some people aren't into that, okay. There's another comment. Okay. All right. So let us go on. Okay. So what is it? Let's talk about agility and job search. So we talked about my understanding of agility. It's not the dog on the left. It's cute. Why is a dog in a horse show? That's what I haven't actually figured out. But let's talk about what agility really means. So I'm going to take this picture and go blow it up. Not that far. Okay, if we take a standard picture of agility, you build it. That's going to start with plan. You plan. You get continuous feedback from your stakeholders. You deploy. You operate. You integrate. And you just do it over and over and over again. This is literally the most simple Agile framework I could find. So this is actually a perfect framework for how you should go about job search. Okay, and that's what we're going to spend probably the next half hour talking about. So let's go on to the next page. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to copy this picture and put it on the next page. Therefore, we'll have a frame of reference. Okay, so that's the picture. Just get rid of this. Just see if I can bring this. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Okay. I got too many independent pictures. Okay, so basically, if we look at a build, plan, feedback, deploy, operate, integrate, continuous. Okay, so it doesn't map exactly, obviously, to job search, but it's pretty close, which is a little scary. So what does build mean? Okay, that's the resume. That's your LinkedIn profile. That could be your cover letter. That could be your 30-second elevator speech. Okay, plan. This is the most important part of job search. So you have to plan a job search. So, or you should plan a job search. Now, I started off by saying that you can get a job without planning. But the question is, do you want to get the right job? So what does that even mean? So a job search strategy basically to me is two parts. It's thinking about strategy on one hand, execution on the other. So job search strategy is really two pieces that I mentioned. The strategy and this execution. The strategy is, what kind of company do I want to be in? What industry do I want to be in? What is the next job that's going to get me to the next job? How am I going to search for a job? Am I going to apply on job boards and get a crappy job because I don't really love job boards? Who in my network could potentially help me out? So all these are kind of big picture, where do you want to be with your life? What do you want to do with your life? Where do you want to be? That's strategy. Execution then becomes, do I have the right resume? Do I write the LinkedIn profile? We're going to talk about networking on the next page. So there's a strategy about where do you really want to position yourself for your career? And there's execution, which is going out and getting the job. And as I mentioned, why do you spend so much time buying a car, or why do you spend so much time buying a house if you're not going to spend that much time in your career? I hate that. I'm passionate about the fact that people should be active in their job search, not just passively accept something. If you passively accept something, it's going to affect your titles you're going to get over time. It's going to affect your compensation. So I strongly believe in having a really active job search type approach. Got to get the strategy down and the execution and really think about it carefully. Okay, feedback. Okay, this is incredibly important. So I can't tell you how many clients or people before they become clients say, okay, Mike, I'm in the middle of job search. I submitted my resume. It's not really doing me any good. Okay, so let's just pause here for a second. Potential client comes in my door. Mike, I've applied for 5,000 jobs online. I've even spoken to a bunch of my network. And you know what? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's wrong with me. Okay, so clearly there's something going wrong with that person, assuming that they're qualified. So, okay, so as part of job search strategy, get opinions in the marketplace about you and your candidacy. So this is a form of network. Never go into salary negotiations with an employer unless you know what your value is in the marketplace. Never start shipping your resume around to people and applying on job boards unless you're passed by a friend or two or three in that industry. Have somebody in that industry take a look at your LinkedIn profile. Passing your marketing materials past someone who you know and trust that is in the industry you want to be in. I mentioned 1-page resume, 2-page resume, 3-page resume. There may be someone out there saying, Mike, I work in an industry like medical field, which is something I don't know anything about. Our standard is 5 pages in the medical field. Great. Don't listen to me. Go out to people in the medical field and ask them. Now, how do you find those people? Well, we already talked about that, LinkedIn. So if you have the network, great, use it. A lot of people don't use their network for this purpose. If you don't have the network, we already know how to find people on LinkedIn. And then I'll show you how to connect with them on the next page. So there is literally nothing that you can't find out by talking to people. Let me give you an example. Client called me up last night. Yeah, it's been a long day. Client called me up yesterday morning and said, Mike, I just got a job at a bank. They offered me 160,000 plus, I think it was 20% bonus. Should I take it? And I asked him, I said, do you know what your market value is? Because I had helped him with his resume, but I hadn't spoken to him in a while. He didn't hire me for a job for this aspect, but I was happy to help him out. So I basically said to him, I said, well, they're offering 160 plus bonus. Is that market for you? He said, I have no idea. So I did him a favor. What I did was I basically went to LinkedIn. I basically contacted 3 people that I knew that had a similar job in a completely unrelated company. So not his company, not the target company. I went to people who had a very similar job in other companies. And I said, hey, I have a client that is looking at this job. And I gave the person the exact job. I didn't say what company it was, didn't say who my client was. I have a client that has an offer for 160,000 plus 20% from a European bank. I left it at that. And here's the job title, blah, 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 blah. 3 people came back to me and 2 people came back and said it was low. 1 person came back and said it was generally market. Okay, now we start to have a feel for what his market value is. Because there's so much wage inflation these days, maybe the 160 is what they offered. They're clearly going to go up. But how much lower was that 160 than market? So it seems like since 2 people said it's below market and 1 said it's at market, it sounds like it's low, but it's not horribly low. I'd probably ask 6 people if it were me. It was my career. So what's the point? The point is you can get your market value before you even start a job search. You can get what people think of your LinkedIn profile. Before you even start your job search, do interview preparation with people who are smart and can tell you. So this whole concept of feedback that is so important in Agile it's so incredibly important in job search too. And most people don't ask the help of other people when it comes to big picture stuff, especially like what your salary should be. Okay. Deploy. Okay, so what is deploy? That's basically how you're going to look for a job. Are you going to use the job boards? Are you going to network? Are you going to use a recruiter? So the deploying is basically getting out there, getting your resume into the right hands, making a list of companies you want to work for, because yes, you can take control of your job search, make a list of companies you want to work for, and then potentially find out if there's job postings, potentially there's ways to network. I'll talk about that in the next page, and find out and potentially use recruiters. There's other methods out there, but I think these are the three of the biggest ones. So you deploy, you get out there and start finding out what the market is for you when it comes to actual execution. Okay. Operate, that could be the interview process. I'll talk about that in a second. You integrate, that's your basically fail and learn. You will fail in the interview process. I can't tell you how many people have failed in the interview process. I'll come back to interview in a second. So you're going to fail and you're going to learn, and you're going to redo your interview answers, and you may retilt your resume. But don't go crazy on your resume. The biggest mistake I see clients making, or one of the biggest mistakes I see clients making, is they tweak the resume and make sure that perfect word is there. But what they don't realize is they should be doing more networking than tweaking the resume to the nth degree. So it's okay to change your resume, but everything's time allocation as well, right? So spending time on the most value-added activities, which is what we'll talk about on the next page, which is networking, we're going to come back there. Okay. And then continuous is basically revisit the whole thing. So hopefully you only have to go through this once, but the odds are you'll probably have to go through this loop multiple times. Let's just pause on interview here for a second. So here's the dirty little secret, or the dirty little secrets about interviewing. I would say that if I had to estimate, 50 to 75% of the interviews you will go on, you're simply being used by the company for diversity and inclusion, unfortunately, if you're not white. 50 to 75% of the interviews are fake because they basically need a body to put down in their records that they interviewed a body, because they have to report basically all of their interviews or their HR statistics to the government. So the government has all these mandates to say, hey, if you got a job, yes, you can offer it internally, but you also have to offer it externally. Well, if about half the employers out there already know who they want to hire because they've identified an internal candidate, well, guess what? You're being used for the interview. Okay. Now, do you know that ahead of time? Probably not. Okay. That's just a way of saying every other interview you go to is fake. So you have to do multiple interviews, and hopefully you get to a real one. So the first thing about interviewing is it's a horribly fake process. Okay, but two pieces of advice on interviewing. I guess if I can break it down to two. When it comes to interviewing, know the company. Know the company well. When I used to work at Merrill Lynch and I interviewed people that were coming out of college that were looking at investment banking, pardon me, Spindrift, my choice of drink, but again, I don't get paid by them to do that. I just happen to like it. It's available at Trader Joe's for $5.99 for eight cans. So what was I saying? Interviewing, know the company. So I was at Merrill Lynch. The first thing I would ask the candidates is how are we different than Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan? And they would stumble on that, and they knew they couldn't answer the question. And then I concluded the interview about 15 minutes. And then I said, I just concluded the interview. I didn't tell them they didn't get it. So I can't tell you how many clients, or before they become clients, go into the interview process not knowing the company. You got to take a look at the website. If they're public, you got to read some of the publication. You at least got to read their annual report. So the biggest problem I see is that people don't know. The other problem I find with the interview is that people make one or two mistakes. Oh, I actually skipped over that. Okay. Okay. So the second biggest mistake people make in the interview process is they're either less than one or greater than two. Okay. What does that mean in plain English? Your answers in an interview should be between 1 and 2 minutes. Again, I don't know in the medical field, or if you want to be a clown, whether that's the right number, but from the majority of industries out there, you want to be between 1 and 2 minutes. If you're less than 1 minute, you probably didn't give an example. You really have to give examples. Why? Because an example shows what you did. So let me give an example of an example. I took my kids to Central Park and got them some ice cream, and they were happy. Okay, I took my kids to Central Park, ice cream, and they were happy. That's kind of flat. It's kind of boring. So I also said that in about 20 seconds. Now I'm not going to go through a minute and a half interview answer, but contrast that with, I took my 3 kids, Bob, Mike, and Bill, to Central Park to Hayden Planetarium. We took the subway system, what the kids really enjoyed. We went to the planetarium for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour. That's all they could say. Went to the jungle gym right outside the planetarium. We stopped off at an ice cream cart, and Bobby liked the ice cream with the fudge on top. My daughter Jane really liked the ice cream with the swirl built in, and my other son is a health nut, so he didn't want to have any ice cream. At the end of the day, we took the subway back home. The kids gushed to my wife that they had the best day in their world. Okay, now the first answer was flat and too short. The second answer I would have stretched out to a minute and a half if this were real. So you got to be between a minute and 2 minutes. If you're less than a minute, you're probably not telling a story. You're probably not giving an example. Now, don't do the opposite. Don't do over 2 minutes. If you're over 2 minutes, you're probably blabbing. And like I said before, that my brother taught me, anything you say can and will be used against you in court. So if you're more than 2 minutes, you may be giving too many examples. Maybe just giving too much bullshit the other person doesn't want to hear about. You may be just droning on. So keep your interview answers between 1 and 2 minutes. That's really the sweet spot. Okay. Okay. So we have the cycle here over and over again. Hopefully you don't have to do it too many times, but over and over again. Okay. So let's go to the most important part, networking. Okay. And I've talked about this. This is what clients pay me thousands of dollars for. I mean, literally this picture. Obviously, I give them tutorials, we work on it, but let's take a step back. If you want to apply on job boards and you're 22 years old, great. I think that's probably an effective technique. If you're more than 26 and want to apply on job boards, that's okay, but you're going to get the less attractive jobs. Okay. So if you're over 26 years of age and you don't have a friend in the company, or if job boards aren't going to work for you, then try the recruiters. Okay, so 22, you don't need the recruiters, use the job boards. 26, you start to get into networking, you start to get into recruiters. If you're 30 plus and you want to get a good job, it's not going to be with the job boards. I personally hate job boards. Number one, you're being used. Number two, people just are neurotic about changing their resume around. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know, they take the job description, they scan it for the keywords, they put their keywords into the resume, then they submit that on a job board. Well, here's the problem with that. When you submit a resume on a job board, don't have an image or a picture or a table. You can't have non-ASCII characters, You can't have non-ASCII characters on a resume. So if your resume is not properly formatted, when it goes through the HR system and the bots, it's never going to get to a human. So you want to apply online? Okay, make sure your resume actually has the right format or doesn't have the wrong format. It's more doesn't have the wrong format. Okay, so half the jobs don't exist because they've already been promised to somebody else. HR bots are going to kick you out if you have the wrong format. You have to have the keywords. In theory, you actually should scrape the job description to make sure those keywords are on your resume. Okay, all of this for 50-50. Now, what happens in all these? So let's assume your resume gets through. So now the HR person, generally speaking, recruiting is done by more junior people in the beginning. So now the HR person says, oh, here are these 500 resumes that got through the HR system, or 50. There's 50 resumes got through the HR system. What does a junior HR person do? Generally speaking, they just take the first 5 that are on their desk, the first 5 names. So you got it through, you're one of 50, but it's not a careful solicitation, careful collection process to figure out, well, who should I interview? The junior person literally just takes the first 5 names because it's easiest. They're way overworked. If they're in a medium or big company, even a small company, they're having 30 or 40 or 50 different searches going on at the same time, especially in this market, which is just so hot. So this whole thing about applying on job boards, from does your resume pass through? Do you have the right words? Is the format going to be okay? If you actually get to a human being, are they going to pick you out? So that's why I think job boards for young people is great. But at the end of the day, it's networking. I'll say this about recruiters. I think recruiters can be an extremely valid and very productive way to get a job. However, you have to keep in mind a few things about recruiters. Actually, I'd like to ask a question. Who here thinks that when you contact a recruiter, who thinks that a recruiter represents a candidate in the job search? So the question is, does a recruiter represent a candidate in job search? How about a Y or an N? Can I get a Y or N from anybody? Okay, a Y or an N? Ah, okay, we got some N's, we got some N's. Come on, I need some more, else I'm going to go back to the stories about my ex-wives. They don't want you to tell me stories about them. I don't really want to tell stories about them. How about some more? Okay, we got some. No more ex-wife stories. Okay, a recruiter is paid by a company to find you. A recruiter gets paid somewhere between 20 and 25% of your base salary. Good money. A recruiter does not represent you. So that most people who answered it were right. Okay, we got some no's. Good. So we have some people who are knowledgeable about this. A recruiter represents the company. Recruiter doesn't represent you. Now, if you are the perfect candidate, you're their best friend. Why? Well, run the numbers. $200,000 job, 25%. That's a nice chunk of change if that job gets filled. So if you are the perfect person, you are their best friend. If you're not the perfect person, you're not. And a recruiter gets paid just like everybody else to do the least amount of work to be the most productive. So if you have a gap in your resume, recruiters say that's a harder placement, and it is, everything else being equal. If they're looking for Python and you don't have Python, but you got C++, you're not an easy fill. If they're looking for somebody with 5+ experience and you have 3, you're not the easiest fill. Now, you may be the best qualified person for the job, but that doesn't matter. The recruiter is looking for the exact right person they're trying to find. And if you're that person, perfect. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But since you never know whether you're going to be that right person, and since a recruiter generally likes to speak with you because whether they have a job fill or not, they want to get you into their database. So the funny thing about recruiters is they want to get you into the database. They'll give you a call, but you won't hear back from them unless you're the perfect person for the job. So I think recruiters are great. Many of my clients get jobs through recruiters. But we have 20 or some odd minutes left. Let's talk about networking and why networking is so important. Okay, so if applying online is kind of smoke and mirrors sometimes, if recruiters can be helpful in certain circumstances, but not all of them, let's talk about networking. And a lot of you are saying, Mike, I have no network. I don't know that many people. I can't network. Okay, but you can network, because if you don't have a network, you can build a network. Okay, I have 18,500 first connections on LinkedIn. I started off with 0. Matter of fact, I think I've added 15,000 connections in the past 2 to 3 years alone. So there's certain restrictions LinkedIn has in terms of how many people you can invite and all these other statistics, but you can create a network. Okay, so let's talk about networking for a job. Okay, so the hierarchy of networking for a job is the following. The best group of people are the people that will take your call. The people that will take your call are friends, our family, our colleagues you used to work with. If someone will take your call, they're extremely valuable and they're in the industry you want to be in, or may know people in the industry. So family, friends, colleagues that will take your call. Okay, they're the most important people. They know you, they like you, they trust you, and they want to be able to help you. Now, how you empower them, that's a slightly different story. But these people that will take your call will do you a favor that most people won't. Now, a lot of people, interesting, I had a conversation with a guy actually yesterday, seasoned guy. I said, how many people will take your call for the job search? He's like, I don't know, 20, maybe 25. I looked at him and said, wait a minute, you've had 5 jobs in your career. You have been to you've been to 2 colleges. You're active in charities. You mean to tell me there's only 20 to 25 people that will take your phone call? I said, please stop and think about it. Okay, after he came back to me in our next call, he found about 75 people. So it won't always kick into your mind at first who will take your call, but if you sit down and think about it, you'll probably find a lot more people. And there's another way to find out, which I'll talk about in a second. So these people that will take your call, somebody asked me to show F5, slide mode, F5. Okay, so the reason why I can't show slide mode is because I have 3 screens and I can't tell where I am. So I know how to career coach. I don't know how to use LinkedIn as well. So let me see if I can blow this up. No, I can't. I don't want to lose the whole presentation. So Manish, who asked for, somebody asked me to hit F5. Unfortunately, I don't want to lose everybody. So the screen may be a little small, but I apologize. Let me see if I can increase the view. Zoom. No, it didn't work. Let's try 125. Nope. Okay. Clearly I need lessons on how to do that. So we'll just go back to 100%. Okay. Okay, so people that will take your phone call, absolutely the most important people in the world. Number two, in terms of the prioritization of people that can help you. Existing first connections on LinkedIn. Okay, so I mentioned I have 18,500. I probably see an average person having 500 plus. Even if you don't, that's fine. You can build them. So the people that are you're first connected with are extremely valuable. Now you may say, hey, Mike, I clicked the, a woman contacted me. She wanted, she said, let's connect. I connected. I didn't know her. That's fine. So your first connections are going to be everybody from your mom. Well, my mom's not on LinkedIn because she's 79, but everybody from your mother all the way to somebody who you basically don't know. However, the very fact that you're connected on LinkedIn is a common touch point. And in this whole idea of networking, it's all about common touch points. The majority of the world you will never meet, you will never see, you may not want to see them, but the people that are your first connections, there's some spark of connection there or commonality. You can take advantage of that. First connections on LinkedIn. Now, the other thing about your connections on LinkedIn is if you have 500 plus connections, actually, if you have 200 or more connections on LinkedIn. So if you have 200 or more connections on LinkedIn, I will guarantee you that you do not know where all of those people work today. It's impossible. Unless you just went through unless you have a perfect memory, you do not know where 200, 300, 500, 1,000 people are working today. So when I say you can use your first connections because there's a spark of at worst case, it's a spark of commonality. Well, the first question is, who are they and where are they? So the fact is, you don't know where your first connections are unless you have, whatever your memory can hold. So I'm going to show you another trick. You can actually download your first connections from LinkedIn. So let me just show. So LinkedIn allows you to download nothing because it's their proprietary system. Okay, so I changed screens, so Mindy, let me know if people can't see. But if we go to LinkedIn, LinkedIn allows you to download basically one and only one thing they found, which is basically they let you download your first connections. And it's actually not as simple as that, but suffice it for this conversation. So how do you download your first connections on LinkedIn? Okay, so we go back to the good-looking guy here, arguably 5 years old. Arguably hair is not as in good shape, but we already talked about that. Anybody who sells Rogaine, give me a call after the call. Okay, so if you go to the small picture of yourself in the upper right-hand corner, and then you go to, settings and privacy, and everybody's will look slightly different, but I think access to premium is only if you pay, $40 a month or more, but everyone should have a settings and privacy. So I'll do this slowly. You go to the small picture of yourself, settings and privacy, and when we put that in, everyone, okay. This is to download, I'm typing into the window now, download first connections, okay. Small pic, then settings.
We can't see what you're typing.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so now, get a copy of your data. Again, everyone's screen is going to look different than mine, or potentially could look different. But you'll see a menu item. Everybody should see a menu item called "Get a copy of your data." Okay, it's in the data privacy menu, in case you want to go to it that way. So if for some reason you don't get to the exact screen I got to, mine defaults to data privacy. I don't know what yours does. So data privacy, amongst all the different menu items, get a copy of your data. Okay? Now, LinkedIn will either give you all the data, or they'll give you pieces parts. Right? I like all the data, so I would click all the data and request archive. And what LinkedIn's basically going to do, that's at this point, it's just mechanic. So let me just put that into the chat, settings privacy, get a copy of your data. I'm just typing in, get a copy of your data under data privacy, and then just follow directions. Okay, and what LinkedIn's going to give you, basically, it's in the chat. What LinkedIn's basically going to give you is they're going to give you a spreadsheet. They're going to give you a whole bunch of different spreadsheets. Most of them are worthless. They're going to give you one spreadsheet called connections, and they're going to give you another spreadsheet called contacts. Forget about it. Forget about the difference. But basically, they're going to give you two spreadsheets you really care about for the exercise: connections and contacts. Now, LinkedIn's not stupid. They're not going to give you every piece of information you want to know about this person. They're going to give you some email addresses, They're going to give you some of this, some of that. But once you get this zip file, as it comes in a zip file from LinkedIn, you take your connections spreadsheet, you take your contacts spreadsheet, put them together, and now you got a great list of all your contacts. And the great thing is, let me go back. The great thing is that now you're going to know, because now you can use the filter. You can filter by company. You can filter by company. You can filter by where they are geographically. You can filter by title. I'm pretty sure they give you the person's title. So knowing where your first connections are is just incredibly important. Now, you could also get to your first connections on the screen. Although I think it's better to have, I actually like it stuffed in a spreadsheet, but you can get to them on the screen. So how do you get to your first connections by online, so to speak? So you go to your search bar, like I talked about before. You go to your search bar, you click in the upper left-hand corner, you hit enter. You have all your different filters here. You type in people or you click people. All filters. And now you have your first connections. So all you have to do, first connections. And you can see here I have about 17,000. Now, you can go back and use those filters on them, or you can say, okay, does Mike have any clowns? I don't know why I'm really high on clowns. I don't know why. Oh, I know somebody at Dead Clown Productions, and I know someone at Janky Clown. Okay, so if anybody's interested in the business and wants to get into the business of clowns, give me a call. I have 2 contacts. I don't have to repeat all the searches. Again, Boolean variables, everything else. Go through your first connections and sort them at will. How many people do I know that are Agile? Okay, I got 1,200 Agile people. Oh, that's not too bad. Wow. So I have 1,200 people that have Agile in their profile. Again, it's people that have Agile in their profile anywhere. Not necessarily that is their job, not necessarily they have a Scrum Master certificate. Okay. So your first connections, incredibly important in job search. Know who they are, know where they work. They are your sort of second line of defense. Your third line of defense, there's only so many people that will take your call. Let's be realistic. There's only so many people you're ever going to be first connected to. However, you can create first connections for yourself. Okay, and this is really the key. So if you don't have a big network, then you can create first connections for yourself. Now, in job search, I found the best way to increase the chance that someone connects with you is if you have a commonality with them. So yeah, you could ask, you could send me a LinkedIn invitation right now. If I don't know you, I may not accept it. Well, but if you send me a LinkedIn invitation and you show me that we came from the same university, not necessarily the same year, I graduated 200 years ago. So the odds are if a Penn or Columbia person contacts me, I'm probably older than them. But if you went to the same university, if you worked for the same employer, or you're even second connected with them, these are all very, very powerful tools to use in dramatically increasing the chances that someone connects with you. Okay. Now, the next question you're going to say is, well, Mike, what if I don't have commonalities with them? Okay, then you can use your second connections, or you can go back to the standard. I'd like to add you to my network. By the way, when you link in with somebody, use short words. I get LinkedIn invitations all the time. It's like a book. No one reads a book. So if I were connecting with someone that went to my university, I would say, Penn 88 wishes to connect. Hi, Penn 88 wishes to connect. So keep it short, keep it sweet. And even if you don't have any, if you have second connections, hi, we know people in common. Let me say that slower. If you're second connected with someone and you want to invite them, I would say, hi, we know people in common. I wouldn't mention those people unless you have their name, unless you have permission to use their name. I think it's bad form. But I find that people will connect with you this way. So let me give you some statistics. Okay, so hopefully you can still see my screen. Okay, actually I'll type them in. So if you invite 100 people, okay, everybody could if everyone could look at the chat for a second. I know I'm good looking, but let's go to the chat for a second. If I invite 100 people and I have a commonality with them, again, same university, former employer, or we're second connected. If I use the right wording, which I just told you, then if I invite 100 people, I will almost guarantee you unless you went to the University of Chicago, 30 to 40 people will accept your invitation. 30 to 40 people. Why University of Chicago? I don't know why. I've had clients there and they reach out to other University of Chicago people. They don't seem to like each other. I don't know. Don't ask me why. Okay, so you invite 100 people, 30 to 40 or 30 to 40% connect with you. And then you ask them for a phone call. Okay, how and all that. If we have time, we'll talk about that. You ask them for a phone call. And what you're going to find is, I'm going to type it in the chat. You're going to find that between 4 and 7 people will give you a chat. Okay. Now let's just take a step back. If we were in the credit card business and we sent 100 people solicitations by mail or by email, and 30 or 40 of those people looked at the solicitation, and 4 to 7 people signed up, we'd be trillionaires. Because in credit cards, I don't know, it's 0.005% now, whatever it is. If you think about it for a minute, if you take a look at these numbers, you invite 100 people and 4 to 7 of them give you a phone call. That is incredibly powerful, especially if it's the right person. You can call my mother, or you can link in with my mother, but that's not going to do you a lot of good because, I don't know, well, she's in real estate, still in real estate at the age of 79. Thank God mom's doing well. But basically, if you think about it for a minute, these are very, very incredibly powerful numbers. There's 4 to 7 people. And a lot of you are saying, like my clients or pre-clients say, Mike, no one's going to pay attention to me. No one wants to help me. It's not true. Again, unless you went to the University of Chicago, I don't know why, you get 4 to 7 people that offer you a call. And the great thing is that if they offer you a call, they've self-selected themselves into this process. So for you folks that are nervous about making phone calls to people you don't know, okay, that's me. I'm in that boat too. If you think about it for a minute, these people self-selected themselves in to help you. It's not going to be an asshole on the phone. It's not going to be somebody that's difficult. It's not an interview. Or, yeah, it's not an interview. It's you basically want to connect with someone for whatever reason you want to connect with them. So 4 to 7 people want to help you and are willing to get on the phone with you for a half hour. That is incredibly powerful, especially if you get the referral. Now, I probably don't have to, okay, so if you get the referral, now look at this. Let's go back to our numbers. Here's where it really gets powerful. You invite 100, 30 to 40 say, yeah, I'll accept your invitation. 4 to 7 people give you a chat. Well, if at the end of that conversation with 4 to 7 people, you say, hey, could you possibly refer me to somebody else in your industry or somebody else in your company? And there's multiple reasons why you may want to get these conversations, either for strategy or for execution. Remember, I talked about in the beginning, you can get these calls for strategy, like how much money am I going to make out there? What's the right title for me? Strategy. Or you can try to get these conversations for execution. You want to work at Facebook, Meta. You want to work at Meta, and hopefully you can connect with some people at Meta. So whether you want to have a broad-based conversation about your career or a specific conversation about potentially getting your resume to a hiring manager, the fact is you've just connected with 4 to 7 people. If you ask for a referral, well, you do the math, 8 to 14, and then so on, so on. Is anybody, okay, does anybody want to admit this? Does anybody remember the Clairol commercial from the 70s where it was you tell one friend and she tells a friend and she tells a friend and she tells a friend? Is anybody comfortable enough in their skin to admit, like me, that they remember the commercial from the 70s? Okay, I'm just going to pause for a second. Nope, I lost the chat. Okay, maybe somebody did. Okay, so basically you can see how powerful this is. It's incredibly powerful. So you get 8 to 14 calls before you actually, sorry, just had to shrink my screen. I was looking at myself. I don't like looking at myself, even if it's on another screen. You get 8, 10, 12, 15 calls with people, either in the same company, across companies, for whatever purposes. There's a lot of information that you're going to see, and a lot of information you're going to get, and it just makes you smart. And of course, as Agilists, we know that fail and learn, or ask the opinion, feedback. I mean, if you think about it, I guess I think I'm arguing here that feedback may be the most important part of job search. And a lot of you think that, well, I can't get the feedback. Well, you can get the feedback, because even if you don't have friends, you could potentially use these kind of phone calls to get you feedback on your resume. You connect with somebody and you don't want to have a conversation with them. Okay, hi, Bob, thanks for connecting with me. You mind giving me literally 5 minutes of feedback by email on a resume if I give it to you. So, hey, Bob, always use the name. Hey, Bob, Mary, would you mind giving me some feedback on my resume? Quick 5 minutes, just in an email. All right, you're going to get somebody to give you feedback. And I'm not saying it's going to be the best feedback. So the idea is that these phone calls, okay, I want to be cognizant of the time. So the idea is that these phone calls are just so incredibly powerful. Okay. And also keep in mind, let's go back to first connections for a minute and second connections, the link between first and second. I have 18,500 first connections. Okay. I have 3 million plus second connections. So most of them in the United States, not all of them. So think about it for a minute. There's 171 million, I think it was, 171 million people on LinkedIn. I'm connected, second connected with 3 million of them. Okay, that's my business. Obviously, that's not you. But just keep in mind how second connections work. If you start off on LinkedIn and you're the only person in your network, if you invite me to connect, then my 18,000 first connections become your second connections. So you send me an invite, I say yes. Now my 18,500 first connections become your second connections. Obviously it's duplicative or multiplicative or geometric, whatever the right word is. I haven't studied that stuff in a while. So building a network of first connections is good, but the real secret is getting the second connections. I can't tell you how many second connections of my second connections I've gone to with the exact methodologies I told you about to reach out to people and say, hey, would you have a conversation with a client of mine? I've gone out to second connections, people that don't know me from a hole in the wall. And I've asked them if they would give my client a phone call. And the same statistics that you can see here still apply. I go to 100 people and ask, actually, I don't have to invite them because they're already first connections. So if I went to 30 or 40 people and said, hey, would you have a quick conversation with my client to give them some advice? Again, 4 to 7 people of these 30 to 40 are going to say yes. So second connections are incredibly powerful. Yeah, they're the bottom of my hierarchy, but it doesn't mean it's low. Matter of fact, if you take a look at the statistics for the percent of people that will give you a phone call from if you have the same university or former employer or second connection, they're almost on top of each other. And I put them as a hierarchy. There's a little bit of a difference, but think about it. You're inviting second connections. These people don't know you from a hole in the wall. And 30 to 40, if you email 30 or you text 30 to 40 or LinkedIn message 30 to 40, 4 to 7 people give you a conversation. So I sound like a broken record, but I can't tell you how much people just don't network. Yeah.
Brian has his hand up. I think he has a question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm tired of talking, please.
Thank you for everything, Mike, about the LinkedIn aspects. I've learned a lot from that, which I don't know. So the question that it goes way back to the very beginning of your discussion about when it comes to portraying oneself and one's skills. And then often, and I will say similar to you, since the rest of the crowd here doesn't know me, I'm not, in my 20s. So there is the aspect of when it comes to interviewing and presentation and the component of tell me not just tell me what you did on a resume, on LinkedIn, anything along those lines. And I'm trying to ask this question to hopefully help a lot of other younger people. So tell me about what it is that you did and what it means. I'm hoping that you as a career coach are seeing that there are a bunch of older people that move away from the aspect of, since we're agilists here, move away from the aspect of define to me in dollars what you did. Because as you said, we need to go in the direction of behavioral interviewing. Tell them what you did, but what was the value? But value for an agilist is not always immediately translatable into dollars. And so do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, link yourself to the business results as much as possible. I'm an agilist. I work with 5 different stakeholders. I work with 5 different business units. As a result of the agile work that I did, those 5 business units grossed $85 million in revenue. Link yourself to a business result. A business result doesn't always have to be revenue. A business result could be cost savings. A business result can be reduction in, or Agile's work a lot on continuous improvement, cost savings. The idea is link yourself as closely as possible to the results. No, if you're an Agilist and you're not working on the revenue side of the business directly as a salesperson, people are going to know that. You don't say, I generated $85 million, but you link yourself to the activities that you want to get hired for. So if you're looking at something that's supporting sales, put down how you've worked with the sales, how you've worked with sales, how many salespeople did you work with, how much in revenue did they generate. So no matter what age you are, if you want to try to change jobs or you want to stay in the same job, you've got to you have to create a bridge so that the client can see you working there. So, so I think the answer is just try to quote metrics as much as possible. How many people you work with, how many people you support, all that.
Yep. Yep. And like I said, I'm trying to ask the question for younger Agilists that are here on the phone. But then the next step in that equation for anybody to think about is that I think what you would agree with as a career coach is, since you can't say it's worth X dollars, but then that's where you true back to some of the things of what I know you opened the call with saying, you know, you're not here to advocate any sort of methodology of anything about delivery, but to try to translate it to why, as an Agilist, the things that you did helped to support that. Because the main thing about behavioral interviewing is, tell me specifically what you did. And that's the hard part, I think, especially with some younger folks maybe are on the phone, that they might need to hear.
I manage a team of 5 individuals through daily sit downs, 2-week scrum sessions to facilitate creation of the XYZ product, which got to market 6 months ahead of schedule. How many people did you manage? How many people did you touch? And the word manage does not have to mean report. Obviously, if you're young, you're not going to have direct reports, depending on how young you are in your profession. So find any statistics, say what you did. I mean, I believe in being genuine. Say what you did. If your Agile work affected 5 people, say that. So just, you got to grab as much tangible stuff as possible. I went to the park. I took my kids to the park, and they loved ice cream. Okay, that's flat. So you got to do the best you can with creating a story that the other person wants to hear with as many tangible aspects as you can, even if it's how many people in your division. Oh, I was in a 500-person division assigned to this product. There were 5 of us. Just try to tell a story with numbers. It's just as much as you can, numbers.
But yes, thanks. And since we're at time almost, if you stick around for a second, Mike, I'll tell you why I asked that question.
Okay.
When we wrap up, Mindy knows I ask a lot of questions usually, so maybe it'll just be the 3 of us.
Yep, that's fine, Brian.
Okay, more questions. Okay, somebody's got to have a question. Anybody?
Feel free to unmute and ask your questions.
I charge people $250 an hour for this. You got
Hi, Mike.
You got me free. Yep.
Quick question, and you could say that this is a different question for it. I am moving from being a full-time parent, and I've done a lot of Agile training before I was a full-time parent. How do I spin full-time parent into networking?
Sure. Well, first someone has to give you a gold star, because I think if I raise my kids, we don't want to go there. So you've been a full-time parent, which means you know how to manage time, you know how to manage stakeholders. Did you do the volunteer activity? If so, what kind of volunteer activity did you do? Did you talk to friends and help them with a business model? So again, it's concept of creating a bridge. No one's stupid, don't lie. But what activities did you do in your personal life that will create the impression and that are similar to your business life? So really think about what you did on the personal side. At a minimum, you manage some pretty difficult stakeholders, whether it be a partner, whether it be the kids. So find whatever, take a look at a job description and say, what did I do in my personal life that sort of looks like managing a team, that sort of looks like dealing with shareholders, sort of looks like budgeting. So that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much. That's actually very helpful.
Now you should go try to fill the gap. You may want to get another Agile cert. You may want to read whatever you're missing. Start reading as much as possible. So if you've been reading the whole time, excellent. So just create a bridge. Almost everybody can create a bridge somewhere. Not always, but almost the whole time you can create a bridge.